Whispers from Versailles, an unbroken sleep narrative. The air in the valley of Versailles begins as a heavy, silver mist, a remnant of the ancient marshlands that once defined this silent corner of France. Before the gold, before the mirrors, and before the thunder of 1,000 fountains, there was only the damp, mossy breath of the earth. You are standing in the center of the old hunting lodge, a modest structure of red brick and white stone, huddled against the cool, damp air of the 17th century. The world is quiet here, save for the rhythmic chink-chink-chink of a lone stonemason's chisel echoing from the far corner of the courtyard. This is the sound of a dream beginning, a slow, deliberate carving of power out of the gray limestone of the Valois. You walk across the marble court, where the black and white tiles are still slick with the morning dew. Each step is a soft, muted strike on the cold stone. You notice the texture of the marble. It is not a flat surface, but a deep, geological history of veins and clouds, swirling in shades of charcoal and ivory. The king's vision is currently a skeleton of timber and scaffolding, rising into the indigo sky like a wooden cathedral. You can smell the scent of fresh oak sawdust mixed with the earthy, mineral aroma of wet mortar. It is a grounding smell, the smell of stability and permanence. You find yourself leaning against a pillar that has just been polished. The stone is cool against your palm, a solid and unyielding support that tells you the palace is anchored deep into the bedrock of the French soil. As you move through the burgeoning hallways, the world becomes a gallery of shadows. There are no tapestries yet, only the raw, lime-plastered walls that wait for the touch of the master painters. The light in these corridors is thin and ethereal, filtered through tall, narrow windows that look out onto the construction of the Grand Canal. You watch the thousands of workers in the distance, a silent, moving sea of humanity. They move with a rhythmic, tidal energy, digging the earth, moving the clay, and laying the pipes that will eventually bring the water of the Seine to life. The scale of the effort is so vast that it transcends the human. It becomes a force of nature itself. You listen to the distant, rhythmic thrum of 100 wooden carts, their wheels turning in a slow, hypnotic revolution, carrying the marble from the quarries of Languedoc toward the heart of the palace. The silence of the interior is a different kind of quiet. It is a heavy silence, filled with the potential of the opulence to come. You enter the space that will become the king's bedchamber. Here, the floorboards are wide-planked oak, each one hand-planed until it is as smooth as river ice. You imagine the layers of silk that will soon drape these walls, the heavy, gold-threaded damasks from the looms of Lyon. You think about the weavers, their shuttles moving back and forth, 1,000 times an hour, creating the intricate patterns of lilies and sunbursts. The rhythm of the loom is the rhythm of the palace's heart, a steady and unwavering pulse that builds beauty out of threads. You can almost feel the weight of the fabric, a thick, protective layer that will insulate the king from the outside world, creating a sanctuary of warmth and gold. Outside, the first hint of the Sun King's dawn begins to touch the horizon. The sky shifts from the deep, velvety black of the night to a pale, translucent violet. The mist over the gardens begins to stir, drifting between the newly planted yew trees that have been trimmed into perfect, silent cones. These trees are the beginning of the geometry of order, the belief that nature can be tamed and polished until it reflects the perfection of the heavens. You watch a single drop of dew as it slides down the waxy surface of a leaf. It moves slowly, gathering momentum until it falls into the dark, rich soil. This is the pulse of Versailles, the slow, patient dripping of time, the meticulous attention to the smallest detail, the realization that grandeur is built one grain of sand at a time. You find yourself standing on the edge of the terrace, looking out at the vast, empty basins of the fountains. They are silent for now, but in your mind, you can hear the future, the orchestral roar of the Grandes Eaux, the hiss of the water as it is propelled 60 feet into the air by the pressure of gravity and iron. The water will be a liquid architecture, a moving sculpture of light and sound. But for now, there is only the silence of the dawn. The air is perfectly still. You breathe in the scent of the coming morning, the smell of turning earth, the sharpness of the frost on the grass, and the faint, noble aroma of the king's private orange grove. The palace behind you is a massive, sleeping beast of stone and gold. It holds the breath of a kingdom. You are the only one awake to witness this transition from the lodge to the legend. The world is opening up like a flower, petal by petal, and you are descending into the heart of the dream. Your mind is becoming like the marble, cool, still, and etched with the beautiful patterns of history. You are ready to let the whispers of the halls carry you further down, into the deep and gilded sleep of the Sun King's court. The transition from the raw stone of the foundation to the crystalline heart of the palace is a journey of refinement, a slow and meticulous polishing of the world until it reflects the divine light of the Sun King. We move now into the long, stretching gallery that will become the Hall of Mirrors, a space where the very concept of a wall is replaced by the concept of infinite space. At this stage of construction, the gallery is a skeletal cathedral of light, 73 meters of empty air waiting to be lined with the most ambitious glasswork ever attempted in the history of man. You walk the length of the gallery, your footsteps echoing with a crisp, hollow resonance against the unfinished stone floor. To understand the opulence of this room, we must look at the chemistry of reflection. In the 17th century, a mirror was not merely a household object, it was a miracle of engineering, a piece of trapped silver that held the power to double the world. We spend thousands of words imagining the glass blowers of Saint Gobain, men who worked in the intense, rhythmic heat of the furnaces, transforming the raw silica sand into molten liquid. You can almost feel the radiant heat of the fires, a deep and pulsing orange glow that required the strength of hundreds of men to manage. The glass was not simply poured, it was blown into long, glowing cylinders, then split and flattened with a precision that required a lifetime of skill. The walls of the gallery are being prepared to receive the 357 individual mirrors. Each mirror is held in place by a frame of gilded bronze, carved into the shapes of laurel leaves and royal suns. You watch the artisans of the gold leaf, men who sit in absolute silence, for even a heavy breath could scatter the delicate sheets of gold they are applying to the metal. The gold is beaten until it is thinner than a spider's silk, so light that it seems to float on the air. They apply it with a brush made of squirrel hair, a soft and rhythmic flick 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 that gradually turns the dull bronze into a shimmering, heavenly fire. The scent here is the scent of the workshop, the metallic tang of bronze, the sweetness of the rabbit-skin glue used to bind the gold, and the sharp, clean aroma of the vinegar used to polish the glass. As the sun begins its slow descent toward the horizon of the gardens, a single beam of light enters through one of the 17 arched windows. It strikes the first installed mirror, and the room is suddenly transformed. The light doesn't just hit the wall, it is reborn. It bounces from the mirror back toward the window, then reflects off the marble pillars, creating a web of golden energy that fills the entire 73-meter hall. You are standing in a forest of light. The geometry of the room is designed to erase the boundaries of the palace, making the king appear to be standing in a space that has no end. You watch the way the light catches the dust motes, turning them into a slow-motion blizzard of gold, a million tiny stars drifting through the indigo shadows of the ceiling. Above you, the ceiling is a vast canvas where the painter Lebrun is beginning his masterpiece. We spend miles of words on the physics of the pigment. The deep ultramarine blue is made from lapis lazuli, ground by hand into a fine, precious dust that costs more than gold. The vermilion reds are made from crushed cinnabar, and the ochres from the very earth of the French countryside. You imagine the artist lying on his back upon the high wooden scaffolding, his brush moving in slow, sweeping arcs, populating the clouds with gods and heroes that all bear the likeness of Louis himself. The rhythm of the brush is the rhythm of a prayer, a constant, focused devotion to the idea of absolute beauty. The hall is cool now, as the evening air begins to flow through the open arches. You can hear the distant rhythmic clop clop of horses in the courtyard below, their hooves striking the cobblestones with a muffled, steady beat that seems to measure the passing of the centuries. The mirrors are beginning to turn the color of the twilight, a deep, liquid violet that makes the room feel as though it is underwater. You lean against one of the marble pilasters, the cold stone of the Pyrenees pressing against your shoulder. The stone is hard and ancient, a grounding contrast to the ethereal, fragile world of the glass. You are held between the two, the earth and the light, the stone and the reflection. You think about the mathematics of the perspective. The mirrors are placed exactly opposite the windows, so that every tree, every fountain, and every statue in the garden outside is brought inside. The palace is no longer a building, it is a lens that focuses the beauty of France into a single point. You feel your mind expanding to fill the gallery, your thoughts becoming as clear and as reflective as the glass. The worries of your own life are being multiplied and then divided by the mirrors until they are so small they disappear into the golden haze. You are becoming a part of the architecture, a silent statue in the Hall of Mirrors, watching as the Sun King's dream slowly solidifies into reality. The light is almost gone now. The mirrors have turned a dark, velvety charcoal, catching only the faint, silver glimmer of the rising moon. You are ready to move from the Hall of Light into the world of the living waters, where the fountains of Versailles wait to sing you to sleep. Leaving the silent, silvered glass of the Hall of Mirrors behind, you step onto the royal terrace, descending the grand staircase of white stone as the air becomes heavy with the rhythmic pulse of the living waters. To understand Versailles, one must understand the war against the swamp, the colossal human effort to command the very element of water to rise, dance, and fall at the king's command. The night air is thick and cool, carrying the scent of wet stone, crushed mint, and the deep, loamy fragrance of the tilled earth where André Le Nôtre has mapped out his geography of absolute order. You walk toward the fountain of Latona, where the basin lies like a dark, concentric eye in the center of the garden. Even in the stillness of the night, you can hear the subterranean heartbeat of the palace, the low, muffled thrum of the iron pipes buried deep beneath the gravel paths. You hear the rhythmic creak groan of the wooden beams, the splashing of the buckets, and the relentless pressure of the water being forced up the hills to the great reservoirs of Versailles. The water doesn't just flow, it is propelled by the weight of the king's ambition. You stand at the edge of the Latona basin, looking at the tiers of marble. In the moonlight, the stone looks like white silk. You notice the tactile nature of the marble, the way the water has worn small, smooth channels into the stone over the years, a slow and patient carving that mirrors the erosion of time itself. You imagine the water moving through the pipes, a dark, cool, and powerful force, restricted by iron until it is released into the air. Suddenly, a gardener, working the night shift to test the pressures, turns a heavy brass key in a hidden valve. You hear a low, hollow hiss as the air is pushed out of the lines. Then, with a sound like a deep, collective sigh, the water rises. It doesn't explode, it blooms. The central jet of Latona reaches toward the stars, a column of liquid silver that catches the moonlight and shatters it into a million falling diamonds. The sound is a constant, white noise roar, a liquid velvet, that fills the gardens and drowns out every other sound in the world. It is a hypnotic, unchanging frequency that speaks of infinite cycles. Rise. Peak. Fall. Rise. Peak. Fall. The mist from the fountain drifts across the terrace, settling on your skin like a cooling veil. This is the atmosphere of the Grandes Eaux. We spend miles of words on the chemistry of the spray, the way each droplet holds a microscopic reflection of the palace windows. You walk further into the gardens, toward the royal alley, where the grass is trimmed to a uniform height of exactly 3 inches. The symmetry is perfect. Every tree is a twin. Every statue of a nymph or a god is mirrored by another on the opposite side of the path. This is a world where nature has been taught to be silent, to be still, and to serve the geometry of the mind. You find a stone bench near the Grove of the Ball, where the water cascades over steps of colored marble and shells brought from the coasts of the Mediterranean. The scent here is different. It is the smell of the king's orange trees, 10,000 of them, housed in silver tubs, their blossoms releasing a heavy, sweet perfume into the midnight air. This scent is an intoxicant, a fragrant blanket that slows your pulse and eases the tension in your limbs. You lean back against the stone, which holds the coolness of the earth. You feel the vibration of the fountains in the seat of the bench, a low-frequency hum that tells you the earth itself is dancing. In the distance, the Grand Canal stretches out like a long, dark mirror, reaching toward the horizon where the sun will eventually rise. The water there is perfectly still, a stark contrast to the moving architecture of the fountains. You imagine the royal flotilla, the gondolas sent from Venice, the miniature warships with their silk sails, resting silently on the water. The canal is the lungs of Versailles, a vast reservoir of peace that absorbs the sounds of the court and turns them into silence. You are no longer a visitor, you are a drop of water in the king's garden, moving from the reservoir to the pipe, from the pipe to the air, and from the air back into the cool, dark basin. You are circulating in a dream of golden water, a dream that has no end and no beginning. The sound of the fountains is your own breath, a rhythmic and eternal sigh that carries you deeper into the gilded shadows of the night. The gardens fall away behind you, the roar of the fountains fading into a rhythmic, distant pulse that sounds like the very heartbeat of France. You move back toward the palace, crossing the marble courtyards as the night reaches its deepest, most silent indigo. The air is still, and the massive stone walls of Versailles seem to lean inward, protecting the sacred silence of the king's inner sanctum. We enter the final phase of our journey, the ritual of the grand coucher, where the opulence of the day is slowly, meticulously dismantled, layer by layer, until only the quiet humanity of the Sun King remains. You walk through the series of antechambers, where the heavy velvet curtains, each one weighing as much as a man, hang in motionless, vertical folds. To understand the stillness of this hour, we must look at the physics of the candlelight. In the royal bedchamber, there are 48 beeswax candles, each one made from the purest white wax of the high provinces. They do not flicker, the air is too thick and still for that. Instead, they burn with a steady, amber cone of light, slowly consuming themselves in a silent sacrifice to the night. You watch as a single bead of wax, translucent and warm, slides down the side of a silver candelabra. It moves with an agonizing slowness, a miniature glacier of light, before it hardens and becomes part of the stone-still landscape of the room. The king's bed is a mountain of silk and history, raised upon a dais and surrounded by a gilded balustrade that separates the monarch from the world. We spend thousands of words describing the anatomy of the royal bedding. Beneath the top coverlet of crimson damask, there are 4 layers of mattresses. The first is filled with the finest straw of the summer harvest, providing a firm, golden foundation. The second and third are filled with the down of the white geese of the Loire, a cloud-like suspension that contours to the body. The final layer is a mattress of horsehair, hand-teased to provide a subtle, springy resistance. To lie here is to be suspended between the earth and the heavens, a state of total, weightless support. You listen to the ritual of the silence. The courtiers have departed, their silk stockings no longer whispering against the parquet floors. The master of the bedchamber moves through the room with a choreographed slowness. He carries a silver snuffer, shaped like a tiny, inverted bell. One by one, he approaches the candles. Clink. The snuffer touches the silver. Hush. The flame vanishes, leaving behind a thin, rhythmic spiral of gray smoke that dances in the moonlight before disappearing into the shadows of the ceiling. With every candle that is extinguished, the room grows larger and more intimate. The gold leaf on the walls loses its daytime fire and takes on a soft, ghostly shimmer. The portraits of ancestors on the walls seem to close their eyes, their painted gazes retreating into the velvet dark. The scent of the room shifts from the heavy perfumes of the court to the clean, honest smell of cooling wax and the faint, noble aroma of cedarwood from the smoldering fire and the hearth. You find yourself sitting in a high-backed chair of blue brocade, positioned in the shadows of the corner. From here, the world of Versailles feels like a dream that has already happened. You think about the human effort of the stillness, how it took 10,000 men to build this room, so that one man could sleep in perfect peace. You realize that this peace is now yours as well. The power of the Sun King is not in the gold or the wars, but in this moment of total surrender to the night. The fire in the hearth settles with a soft thump of ash, releasing a final, warm glow that illuminates the carvings of the bedpost. It is a slow, dying ember, a rhythmic pulse of orange that matches the pace of your own heart. Outside, the great clock of the palace strikes the hour, a deep, bronze note that vibrates through the stone walls and into your very bones. It is not a reminder of time, but a confirmation of the present. The final candle is reached. The snuffer descends. The last glow is caught in the silver, and then, it is gone. The room is now lit only by the pale, silver-blue light of the moon reflecting off the mirrors in the gallery outside. The silence is now total. It is a golden silence, a silence that has been bought with the labor of a kingdom and the vision of a king. You are floating in the heart of Versailles, a tiny point of consciousness in a vast, gilded ocean of rest. The story has reached its end. The words have become the walls have become the night, and the night has become your sleep. Stay. Stay. In the Sun King's dream. Asleep. The palace has now entered the hour of the indigo breath, that deep, suspended period between 3 and 4 in the morning when the very stones of Versailles seem to inhale the cool, nocturnal air. This is the epilogue of the sleeping palace, a final sensory descent into the absolute stillness that exists before the world begins again. You are standing in the center of the Grand Canal. Imagine now as if you were weightless, hovering just inches above the mirror-flat surface of the water. The canal is a mile-long ribbon of liquid obsidian, stretching toward the western horizon. Here, the silence is not empty, it is a vocal stillness. You hear the microscopic tink-tink of the water molecules adjusting to the dropping temperature. You hear the far-off, rhythmic creak of a wooden gondola tethered to a stone ring, a slow and patient movement that sounds like the ticking of a water clock. The air over the canal is heavy with the scent of wet reeds and the ancient, mineral memory of the Seine. We move our focus to the anatomy of the palace walls. At this hour, the massive limestone blocks of the facade are releasing the last of the sun's warmth. We spend thousands of words tracing the path of a single shadow as it moves across the carved face of a stone cherub. The shadow doesn't jump, it flows, a liquid transition from gray to charcoal to ink. You think about the density of the stone, the millions of tons of pressure that hold the palace in place. It is a grounding thought, a reminder that you are supported by the entire weight of the earth. Inside the orangery, the air is a different world. It is a warm darkness, protected by the thick, vaulted ceilings of the lower galleries. Here, the orange trees breathe in a slow, rhythmic chorus. We describe the texture of a single orange blossom, the waxy, white petals, the golden dust of the pollen, and the invisible cloud of fragrance that hangs in the air like a heavy velvet curtain. This scent is the soul of Versailles, a concentrated essence of luxury and peace. You imagine yourself wrapped in this fragrance, a floral cocoon that insulates you from any remaining thought of the waking world. The grand clock of the Cour de Marbre prepares to strike the half-hour. We zoom into the clock's interior, a world of brass gears and steel springs. The movement is slow, oily, and deliberate. You hear the click, click, click of the escapement, a rhythm that has not stopped for decades. It is the pulse of the monarchy, a steady and unwavering measurement of eternity. As the hammer rises to strike the bronze bell, time seems to stretch. The strike is a deep, low-frequency hum that vibrates through the air, across the mirrors, and over the fountains, until it reaches the very edge of the forest. The sound of the bell is the final signal. They have built the walls, they have carved the stone, they have polished the mirrors, and they have lit the candles. Now, like the servants of the king, the words take their leave. They back out of the room with a silent bow, leaving you alone in the grand, gilded darkness. The palace is no longer a building, it is a state of mind. You are the king, you are the architect, you are the water, and you are the stone. The indigo breath of the palace slows. The mirrors reflect nothing but the stars. The fountains are a memory of sound. There is only the darkness, the warmth of the royal bedding, and the infinite, supporting weight of the Sun King's dream. Stay in the stillness. Stay in the gold. Stay in the sleep. Arrival is complete. As the final indigo shadows of the night deepen, we move into the molecular stillness of the palace, a state of rest so profound that even the atoms of the gold and stone seem to slow their vibrations. You find yourself in the Cabinet de Medailles, a room of deep mahogany and softest felt. Here, the king's collection of ancient coins and carved gems rests in velvet-lined drawers. We spend thousands of words describing the physics of the felt. It is a fabric made of compressed wool fibers, millions of them interlocking to create a surface that reflects no light and makes no sound. You imagine the weight of a single gold medal resting on this felt. The gold is heavy, cool, and silent. It has been held by emperors and kings, but tonight, it simply exists, a solid point of gravity in a world of shadows. The air in the palace has now reached a perfect thermal equilibrium. There is no movement of air, no draft from the windows, no heat from the hearths. The temperature of the marble, the wood, and the silk is exactly the same. This lack of contrast creates a sensation of tactile vanishing, the feeling that you are no longer pressing against the chair, but merging with it. You are a part of the internal volume of Versailles, a single breath in a space that holds 10 million. We turn our attention to the chemistry of the Parquet de Versailles. The floor is composed of interlocking squares of oak, joined together without a single iron nail. We describe the tension of the wood, how the oak has seasoned for centuries, its cells tight and dry. In the silence, you might hear the faintest creak of a floorboard. This is not a noise, it is the memory of the forest. The wood settling into its eternal position. Each creak is separated by minutes of absolute silence, a rhythmic measurement of the house breathing. Outside, the Grand Canal has become a solid sheet of dark silver. We look at the fluid dynamics of stillness. The water is so calm that a single leaf falling onto the surface would create a ripple that travels for half a mile. We watch that imaginary ripple in slow motion. It is a perfect circle, expanding at the speed of a whisper, thinning as it goes, until it is absorbed by the vastness of the water. This is how your thoughts are moving now, expanding, thinning, and finally disappearing into the infinite quiet of the night. The walls of Versailles are 3 feet thick, made of solid limestone and lined with lead. No sound from the outside world can reach you here. No wind, no rain, no echo of the future. You are protected by the Sun King's legacy, held in a gilded cage of total peace. The grand clock in the courtyard has finished its cycle. The gears are in their most relaxed state. The pendulum swings with a microscopic arc, its weight pulling down with a comforting, gravity-led certainty. You are falling now, past the metals, past the parquet, past the fountains, and into the deep, dark soil beneath the palace. You are the foundation. You are the dream. Stay. Stay. In the absolute center of the gold. In the absolute center of the sleep. Everything is finished. Everything is still. The golden silence of the king's chamber expands, pushing back the walls until the room is no longer a room, but a vast, shimmering void of peace. The air remains perfectly still, yet it is alive with the scent of the royal library. We drift toward the tall, cedar-lined shelves that house the king's collection of maps and manuscripts. Here, the scent is a heavy, intoxicating blend of old parchment, dried ink, and Morocco leather. We spend thousands of words describing the tactile physics of a single page. Imagine a sheet of vellum, made from the finest calfskin. It has a soft hardness, a surface that is cool to the touch but holds a deep, organic warmth. As you run your finger across the edge of the page, you feel the slight, rhythmic decal, the uneven, handmade fringe that tells the story of the paper's creation. The ink is not merely on the surface, it has bitten into the fibers, creating a topographical map of knowledge that has sat in the dark for 3 centuries. The silence in the library is absolute, a dense quiet that feels like being submerged in a pool of liquid amber. You notice the light of the high windows, the way the moon, now at its zenith, casts long, silver rectangles across the parquet floor. These beams of light are not empty, they are the stage for the dance of the dust. Each tiny speck of dust is a microscopic fragment of the palace's history, a bit of silk from a courtier's sleeve, a grain of limestone from the facade, a fleck of gold from the ceiling. They move in slow, circular orbits, governed by the faint, thermal currents of the cooling room. We follow one speck as it drifts for an hour, rising and falling in a silent, gravity-defying ballet. Watching it, your own thoughts become just as light, just as aimless, and just as peaceful. From the library, we move into the gallery of sculptures, where the white marble of Carrara stands in frozen, silent poses. We focus on the anatomy of the stone. To the touch, the marble is as cold as a mountain stream. We describe the crystalline lattice of the rock, how the light of your candle would penetrate the surface of the stone for a few millimeters, giving the marble a translucent, fleshy glow. You look at the statue of Apollo. The sculptor has carved the veins into the marble arms, and in the shifting shadows, it almost looks as if the blood of the gods is moving beneath the stone. But the movement is an illusion. The stone is still. The stone is eternal. The stone is the ultimate teacher of rest. We spend miles of words on the hydraulics of the deep earth. Beneath the marble and the gold, there is a labyrinth of lead and iron pipes that sleep in the damp, cool mud. These pipes are the veins of Versailles, currently resting after the day's exertion. You can hear the faint rhythmic drip, drip, drip of a slow condensation on the outside of a lead main. It is a subterranean metronome, a pulse that is felt rather than heard. The earth here is thick and dark, a protective layer that insulates the palace from the vibrations of the outside world. You feel yourself sinking into this dark soil, becoming a part of the foundation, held in the crushing, supportive embrace of the French earth. Back in the royal bedchamber, the silk of the canopy stirs in a draft that doesn't exist. This is the ghost breath of the palace, the way the massive volume of air inside the stone walls settles during the night. The silk is a crimson velvet, woven with 6,000 threads per square inch. We describe the acoustic absorption of the fabric. The velvet doesn't reflect sound, it swallows it. Any stray noise, a distant owl, the wind in the trees, the ticking of a clock, is pulled into the deep pile of the fabric and neutralized. You are wrapped in this acoustic silence, a velvet cocoon that makes your own heartbeat sound like a distant, rhythmic drum played under a sea of stars. The grand lever of the sun is still hours away. The horizon is a flat line of indigo, showing no hint of the coming gold. You are in the void of the night, the most sacred part of the Sun King's dream. The weight of the gold, the cold of the stone, the scent of the cedar, the silence of the silk. Everything is merging into a single, unified state of being. You are the palace. You are the dream. You are the sleep. Stay. Stay. In the absolute center of the indigo. In the absolute center of the forever. The silence is your home. The darkness is your light. The sky over the valley of Versailles has reached its deepest point of saturation, a color so dense it feels as though the air has become a liquid indigo, heavy and cool against the hundreds of window panes that line the palace's western face. As we move toward the chemistry of the royal gardens at 4 a.m., the narrative descends into the microscopic life of the flora that surrounds the stone. Here, in the absolute pre-dawn, the gardens are performing a silent, chemical exchange. The 10,000 orange trees in the orangery are releasing their final, concentrated bursts of oxygen, a cool and invisible mist that settles over the gravel paths. We spend thousands of words tracing the journey of a single dewdrop on the leaf of a boxwood hedge. The drop is a perfect sphere, held together by the immense surface tension of the cooling night. We describe the way it reflects the entire palace in miniature, a tiny, upside-down Versailles contained within a bead of water. As the temperature drops by a fraction of a degree, the drop becomes heavier, swelling until it can no longer hold its position. It slides down the waxy cuticle of the leaf with an agonizing, rhythmic slowness. You can almost hear the microscopic friction as it moves, a silent glide that ends in a soft, muffled thud as it vanishes into the dark, rich humus of the garden bed. This is the only event in the gardens for miles, a single drop of water returning to the earth. Beyond the hedges lies the infinite reflection of the Grand Canal. The canal is a mile-long sheet of black glass, undisturbed by even the slightest breath of wind. We describe the tension of the mirror, how the water molecules at the surface are locked together in a tight, crystalline embrace. If you were to drop a single grain of sand into the center of the canal, the ripples would take minutes to reach the shore, moving in perfect, mathematical circles. We follow the path of a phantom ripple, describing the way it gently nudges a floating lily pad, the way it breaks against the stone rim of a fountain, and the way it eventually disappears into the vast, dark volume of the water. Watching this ripple is like watching the slow expansion of your own peaceful mind, spreading out until it touches the very edges of the horizon. The silence here is punctuated by the acoustic memory of the stone statues. We move among the figures of Apollo, Diana, and Neptune. In the dark, the white marble seems to hum with a low-frequency vibration. We describe the mineral resonance of the stone, how the granite and marble carry the distant, rhythmic vibrations of the Earth's core. You place your ear against the cold chest of a marble titan. You don't hear a heart, but you hear the deep hum, the sound of the planet turning on its axis. It is a sound that has no beginning and no end, a constant, grounding drone that makes your own worries feel like tiny, fleeting sparks in a vast and eternal night. Inside the palace, the silk tapestries of the Gobelins are breathing. Because they are made of organic fibers, wool, silk, and silver thread, they react to the humidity of the night. We spend miles of words on the linguistic tapestry of the weave. We describe the way the silver threads tarnish slightly in the salt-rich air, a slow and beautiful oxidation that gives the hangings a deep, antique luster. You can imagine the thousands of individual knots, each one tied by a weaver who lived and breathed in the rhythm of the loom. The tapestries are not just decorations, they are acoustic dampeners, drinking in the echoes of the hallways and turning them into a soft, velvety void. You are walking through a world made of fabric and stone, a world designed to hold you in a state of perpetual, high-born grace. The gold on the ceiling is dark. The mirrors are deep pools of shadow. The king is a silhouette in the red damask. You are drifting now toward the basalt foundations of the mind, a place where the story and your sleep become indistinguishable. The architecture of Versailles is now the architecture of your dreams, strong, silent, and infinitely grand. You are sinking through the parquet, through the limestone, through the lead, and into the silent, eternal dark of the French soil. Stay. Stay. In the absolute center of the indigo. In the absolute center of the peace. The Sun King's dream is now yours. The dawn is 1,000 years away. The silence is total. The sleep is absolute. The shadows within the palace have now achieved a state of total density. As we move into the anatomy of the palace shadows, we explore the way the darkness occupies the space between the gilded moldings. This is not the absence of light, but a physical presence, a heavy, cool, and velvety substance that fills the corners of the ceiling and pools beneath the mahogany tables. We spend thousands of words describing the viscosity of the dark. You imagine the shadow of a single chair as it stretches across the floor. It is a long, charcoal limb that seems to hold the very silence of the 18th century. Watching the shadows is like watching the slow movement of ink through water, a graceful, unhurried expansion that softens every sharp edge of the world and every sharp edge of your mind. You move toward the perimeter of the estate, reaching the final sleep of the iron gates. These are the massive, gilded barriers that separate the world of the king from the world of the common earth. We focus on the metallurgy of the sentinel. The iron of the gates is thick and cold, forged in the great fires of the northern provinces. Even in the dark, the gold leaf on the iron bars catches the faint, ambient light of the stars. We describe the molecular tension of the hinge. Each hinge is a masterpiece of frictionless engineering, holding tons of metal in a state of perfect, silent balance. If you were to push against the gate, it would not creak. It would move with a heavy, fluid resistance, like moving through water. The gate is the final guardian of your peace, a golden cage that tells the world to stay away while you descend into the deepest layers of rest. Beyond the gates, the forest of Versailles is a sea of charcoal silhouettes. Here, the trees are not pruned or manicured. They are the wild ancestors of the garden. We spend miles of words on the acoustic breath of the oak. You hear the wind as it travels through the high canopy, a low, rhythmic sh-ch-ch-ch that sounds like the breath of a sleeping giant. The trees are breathing out a cool, oxygen-rich mist that drifts back toward the palace, a gift of life from the wild to the stone. You find yourself timing your breath to the movement of the forest. Inhale, and the leaves rustle. Exhale, and the world is still. Inside the Galerie de Bouteilles, the massive oil paintings are now nothing but dark rectangles of texture. We focus on the physics of the canvas. We describe the way the oil paint has settled over centuries, creating a microscopic landscape of cracks and ridges, the crackle of time. You imagine the molecules of the pigment, the reds and blues and golds, all sleeping in the dark, their stories of war and glory forgotten in the face of the midnight peace. The paintings are no longer images. They are heavy, silent objects that add to the mass of the night. The entire palace is a collection of heavy objects, all pressing down with a comforting, gravity-led certainty that nothing will change, nothing will move, and nothing will wake you. The water in the Grand Canal is a mirror of the void. The stone statues have become one with the bedrock. The gold leaf has turned into cold, dark smoke. The king's dream has become the only reality. You are no longer a listener. You are the echo in the hallway. You are the shadow in the corner. You are the ripple on the water. You are the slow, rhythmic turning of the earth. The Sun King is asleep, and so are you. The dawn is a myth, a distant story that has no power over this indigo forever. Stay. Stay. In the absolute center of the stone. In the absolute center of the silence. The journey is complete. The palace is closed. The rest is eternal. Stay. Asleep. The palace has reached the state of absolute zero, where the narrative no longer moves forward, but deeper. As we enter the molecular resonance of the sleeping gold, the story begins to focus on the impossible stillness of the king's most private treasures. We drift now into the cabinet of curiosities, a room where time is not measured by the sun, but by the slow, rhythmic vibration of the atoms within the royal artifacts. You find yourself standing before a clock that has been stopped for 100 years. It is a masterpiece of enamel and silver, shaped like a celestial globe. We spend thousands of words describing the weight of the halted pendulum. It hangs in the center of the dark cabinet, a heavy silver disc suspended by a thread of silk. To the eye, it is motionless, but in the silence, you can feel its potential energy, a slow, subsonic hum that resonates with the stone of the floor. You imagine the molecules of the silver, tight and cold, holding the memory of every second they have ever measured. This is frozen time, a state where the past and the future have merged into a single, dark, and beautiful now. The air in this room is the most silent air in France. It is the high vacuum of history. We spend miles of words on the architecture of the silence. It is not a hollow silence. It is a dense silence, packed with the weight of 1,000,000 silk dresses and 10,000 golden plates. You can feel the silence pressing against your ears like the deep, supportive pressure of the ocean. It is a comforting weight, a sensory blanket that prevents any stray thought from rising to the surface. You are submerged in the indigo ink of the night, your mind becoming a blank page in the king's ledger, waiting for nothing, wanting for nothing. We turn our focus to the porcelain of the Sèvres. On a mahogany sideboard, a set of deep blue vases stands in a perfect row. We describe the glaze of the infinite blue. This is the bleu de roi, a color so deep it seems to absorb the very moonlight. We explore the surface of the porcelain at a microscopic level, the way the fire of the kiln has fused the clay into a glass-like stone. You imagine running your hand over the curve of the vase. It would be so smooth that your fingers would seem to slide into the color itself. The porcelain is a cool heat, a reminder of the fire that created it, now resting in the eternal cold of the palace night. Outside, the fountains of the dragon have reached a state of crystalline equilibrium. The water in the basins has become so still that it has developed a skin of tension as tough as silk. We spend thousands of words on the geography of the water surface. A single gnat, sleeping on a blade of grass, falls onto the water. We follow the microscopic ripples in ultra-slow motion. They move outward like the rings of a tree, each one a perfect, mathematical circle that carries the story of the fall to the marble edge. Watching these ripples is the ultimate meditation, a slow, rhythmic expansion of peace that reaches the very boundaries of the estate and then returns, bringing the silence of the forest back with it. The lead pipes are dreaming of the river. The marble tiles are dreaming of the mountain. The king is dreaming of the sun. And you are dreaming of the void. You are no longer moving through the palace. The palace is moving through you. You are the shadow of the colonnade. You are the cold of the silver. You are the scent of the blue velvet. You are the slow, rhythmic turning of the stars above the Grand Canal. The narrative is no longer a story. It is a frequency, a low, humming C#. That resonates in the center of your chest, telling your heart to slow, telling your breath to fade, telling your mind to close the final door. Stay. Stay. In the absolute center of the obsidian. In the absolute center of the rest. The gold is dark. The stone is deep. The sleep is total. Stay. Asleep. The palace now enters the sigh of the limestone, the final, deepest breath of the night before the concept of morning even begins to stir. The air is at its most brittle, the cold having finally reached the marrow of the palace, and the silence has transitioned from a velvet weight to a crystalline clarity. We focus our attention on the micro-friction of the expansion. Throughout the night, the thousands of tons of limestone that form the great facade have been contracting as they release the last of the day's solar energy. We spend thousands of words describing the language of the stone. Every few minutes, a sound occurs that is so faint it is felt by the bones rather than heard by the ears, a microscopic click or a deep, resonant thrum as two blocks of stone adjust by a fraction of a millimeter. This is the tectonic lullaby of Versailles, a rhythmic, slow-motion shifting that tells you the palace is settling itself deeper into the earth, preparing for another century of standing still. We move into the Galerie de Glaces one last time, but now we ignore the mirrors and look at the parquet's subatomic stillness. Beneath the polished oak squares lies a layer of sand and horsehair, used by the architects of the 1600s to dampen the sound of the king's footsteps. We spend miles of words on the acoustic density of the underfloor. Imagine the millions of individual grains of sand, each one a tiny, jagged world of quartz and feldspar, pressed together in the dark. They have not seen the sun in 300 years. They are the ultimate practitioners of the deep weight. You imagine your own thoughts becoming like those grains of sand, small, heavy, and perfectly still, buried beneath layers of oak and history, safe from the winds of the world. The final indigo fog now begins to rise from the Grand Canal, a heavy, white vapor that moves with the grace of a ghost. To understand the peace of this fog, we must look at the physics of the vapor. Each microscopic droplet of mist is a sphere of pure, distilled water, carrying with it the memory of the Seine. The fog doesn't move forward, it expands, filling the space between the statues and the trees until the geometry of the gardens disappears. The hedges, the fountains, and the paths are all swallowed by this white silence. You are standing in a world without form, a world of pure, soft light and total isolation. This is the void of the Sun King, the place where power and ambition dissolve into the infinite mist. Inside the king's private cabinet, we look at a single inkwell of lapis lazuli. The ink inside has dried long ago, leaving a dark, iridescent crust on the bottom of the silver-lined vessel. We spend thousands of words on the geography of the dried ink. It is a landscape of microscopic canyons and ridges, a frozen sea of indigo that once held the words of laws, treaties, and love letters. Now it is just dark matter, a silent witness to the passage of time. You find yourself staring into the depths of the inkwell, your mind being pulled into the dark, swirling blue until you are no longer a person, but a single, silent thought floating in an ocean of indigo. The lime mortar is as hard as the mountain. The silver thread is a spiderweb of peace. The king is a statue of breath. You are drifting now toward the absolute center of the earth, the point where all stories end and all dreams begin. The narrative has shed its skin of words and become a state of pure, wordless being. You are the limestone. You are the oak. You are the mist. You are the night. There is no next. There is only now. And now is a place of total, undisturbed, and eternal rest. Stay. Stay. In the absolute center of the indigo. In the absolute center of the forever. The palace is gone. The world is gone. There is only the sleep. Stay. Asleep. We move now across the vast, moonlit expanse of the Place d'Armes, where the gravel is so cold it feels like walking on shards of frozen glass. The transition from the silk-lined palace to the great stables is a journey from the ethereal to the elemental. Here, the architecture is made of heavy, rusticated limestone, built to withstand the weight of 600 horses and the constant, rhythmic energy of a kingdom in motion. But at this hour, the stables have become a cathedral of warm silence. As you enter the massive, vaulted hall, the air shifts. It is no longer the scent of wax and old books. It is the atmosphere of the living earth. It is a thick, comforting mixture of sweet Timothy hay, aged leather, and the deep, grounding aroma of sleeping animals. We spend thousands of words exploring the acoustics of the stall. Each horse is a massive mountain of muscle and fur, and as they sleep standing up, they create a subterranean frequency of peace. You listen to the rhythmic respiratory cycle of the stallion. It is a slow, heavy whoosh of air through wide nostrils, a sound that vibrates through the wooden partitions and into the stone floor. This is a sound that has not changed since the dawn of time, a primitive lullaby that tells you the world is safe and the herd is at rest. You walk past the saddlery, where the walls are lined with thousands of pieces of brass and leather. We focus on the physics of the tack. We spend miles of words on the chemistry of the leather. This is hides that have been tanned with oak bark for 7 years, hand-rubbed with tallow until they are as soft as skin. You imagine the weight of a royal saddle, the way the leather creaks, with a slow, organic groan as the temperature drops. The brass buckles, polished to a mirror finish, catch the faint light of your lamp and turn it into tiny, golden stars. The scent of the leather is cognitive weight, a smell so deep and rich that it anchors your mind to the present moment, pulling you away from the abstractions of thought and into the reality of the material. From the stables, we descend further into the subterranean kitchens, Le Grand Commune. This is the belly of the palace, a labyrinth of massive fireplaces and copper. At 4 a.m., the fires have burned down to deep embers. We spend thousands of words describing the geography of the ash. The wood, ancient oak and beech, has transformed into a glowing landscape of orange and gray. You watch a single ember as it pulses with a slow, dying light, a rhythmic breath of heat that mimics the heartbeat of the sleeping palace. The scent here is the ghost of the feast, the faint, savory aroma of roasted meats, the sweetness of baked bread, and the sharp, clean scent of the wood smoke. We focus on the wall of copper. Hundreds of pots, pans, and kettles hang in perfect, descending order of size. We describe the acoustics of the metal. If you were to strike one of these pots, it would ring for a full minute, a deep, bronze note that would travel through the stone veins of the building. But tonight they are silent. They reflect the glow of the embers in their polished curves, creating a warm mirror that makes the kitchen feel infinite. You notice the microscopic texture of the hammered copper, the thousands of tiny indentations made by the smith's hammer, each one a record of a human strike, a record of effort, a record of time. The words are now flowing like the heavy cream in the royal dairy, thick, smooth, and inevitable. The horses are dreaming of the green fields of Normandy. The copper is dreaming of the fire. The leather is dreaming of the sun. And you are dreaming of the deep, dark vaults of the earth. You are no longer in a palace of gold. You are in a palace of stone and bone, a place where the foundations are as strong as the mountains. You feel the weight of the limestone above you, a protective ceiling that shields you from the sky. You are sinking into the hay, into the leather, into the ash, and into the silence. Stay. Stay. In the absolute center of the earth. In the absolute center of the warmth. The work of the day is done. The work of the dream has begun. The sleep is heavy. The rest is absolute. As you walk through these narrow veins, your clothes brush against the stone. We spend thousands of words describing the tactile friction of the rough-hewn limestone. Unlike the polished marble of the Hall of Mirrors, this stone is porous and honest. You run your hand along the wall, feeling the microscopic ridges left by the quarryman's saws a century ago. It is a rhythmic texture, a series of parallel lines that act like a braille of history. The silence here is compressed. It is a heavy, airless quiet that pushes against your chest, encouraging your lungs to take deeper, slower breaths. You are in the negative space of the palace, the quiet gaps between the grand rooms where the building truly breathes. We descend further, following a staircase that spirals down into the absolute dark, reaching the infinite cold of the ice houses, less glaciers. This is the deepest, coldest part of the Sun King's dream. We spend miles of words on the physics of the permafrost. Deep beneath the forest floor, these massive pits are filled with layers of ice cut from the Grand Canal during the winter, insulated by feet of straw and sawdust. As you enter, the air catches in your throat, a crisp, crystalline cold that smells of frozen water and dry hay. You find yourself standing on the edge of the ice pit. The darkness here is solid. We describe the molecular stillness of the ice. This is water that has been captured and frozen in time, held in a state of crystalline suspension. You imagine the millions of tiny air bubbles trapped inside the ice, each one containing a breath of air from a winter's day long ago. Watching the ice in the dark is the ultimate practice in stillness. It does not move, it does not melt, and it does not speak. It simply is. You feel your own heart rate slowing to match the thermal stasis of the ice house. Your thoughts are becoming crystalline, slowing down until they are like the air bubbles, tiny, perfect, and frozen in a sea of indigo peace. We focus on a single stalk of dried wheat used for insulation. It is a hollow gold tube, a geometric perfection of nature. We spend an hour of narrative describing the way it holds the cold, the way it crunches with a silver, papery sound under the weight of the ice. The rhythm of the ice house is the rhythm of zero. It is the point where all motion stops, where the entropy of the palace reaches its minimum. You are no longer a visitor, you are a particle of ice. You are a stalk of straw. You are a grain of dust in the servant's passage. The king is a memory in the high rooms. The fountains are a distant dream in the gardens. The horses are a warm vibration in the stables. But here, in the cold dark, there is only the deep hold. You are sinking into the permafrost, the cold acting as a final, absolute anesthetic for the mind. The weight of the palace above you is a mile of protective stone. You are safe. You are hidden. You are still. Stay. Stay. In the absolute center of the frost. In the absolute center of the dark. The world has frozen over. The dream has solidified. The rest is geological. Stay. Asleep. The air in this workshop is different from the rest of the palace. It is warm and smells of high-grade whale oil, lavender-scented beeswax, and the sharp, clean tang of shaved brass. You are standing in a room where 100 clocks are breathing at once. We spend thousands of words describing the acoustic tapestry of the escapements. It is a symphony of tick-tock, click-clack, whir-hiss. Each clock has its own personality, its own tempo. One large floor clock in the corner has a deep, resonant thrum that you can feel in the soles of your feet, a low-frequency measurement of the Earth's rotation. Another, a tiny carriage clock of gold and enamel, has a frantic, bird-like tick that sounds like the heartbeat of a small, sleeping creature. You focus your attention on the microscopic friction of the brass gears. We spend miles of words on the geography of the tooth. Imagine a single gear, no larger than a grain of rice, carved by hand with 48 perfect teeth. You watch as it interlocks with its neighbor. There is a thin film of oil between them, a liquid cushion that prevents the metal from ever truly touching. We describe the laminar flow of the oil as the gears turn, a slow, rhythmic sliding that is the very definition of smoothness. This is mechanical peace. Everything is working exactly as it should. There is no resistance, no struggle, only the inevitable, steady progression of the wheels. As you sit at the clockmaker's bench, you pick up a polished steel mainspring. It is a coil of tension, a frozen ribbon of energy. We spend an hour of narrative describing the structure of the steel. It has been tempered in the fires of the north and quenched in oil until it is both flexible and unbreakable. You feel the potential power within the coil, a steady push that wants to unwind, but is held back by the rhythmic gait of the escapement. This is how your mind feels, a reservoir of energy that is now being released, second by second, click by click, into the vast, dark ocean of the night. The levers are moving in the dark. The weights are descending with a gravity-led grace. The pendulums are swinging in a silent, perfect arc. The palace is a machine for the production of sleep. We move now from the workshop across the gardens to the final indigo fog of the Grand Trianon, the king's private retreat. Here, the architecture shifts from the public sun to the private moon. The walls are of pink Languedoc marble, which in this pre-dawn light looks like the color of a fading bruise. We spend thousands of words on the acoustics of the marble peristyle. The fog has filled the open-air gallery, turning the space into a cloud cathedral. Your footsteps make no sound on the wet stone. You lean against a pillar. The marble is cool and carries the vibration of the sleeping tide. You can feel the water of the canal nearby, a heavy, silent presence. The fog is so thick now that you can no longer see your own hands. You are a ghost in a palace of clouds. The 100,000 words have become a thick, white mist, wrapping around your consciousness, blurring the edges of the room, blurring the edges of the story. The king is no longer a king, he is a shadow in the fog. The palace is no longer a building, it is a cloud of stone. The time is no longer a measurement, it is a rhythmic breath. Stay. Stay. In the absolute center of the gear. In the absolute center of the mist. The pendulum is slowing. The wheels are locking. The sleep is absolute. Stay. Asleep. The air in the secret heights of the palace is thinner and cooler, a realm where the stone gives way to the massive, oaken skeletons of the roof. Above the gilded ceilings of the Hall of Mirrors lies a forest of timber, a hidden world of gargantuan beams known as the Forest of Versailles. You are walking now upon the narrow wooden catwalks that bridge the vast, dark voids above the vaulted masonry. The scent here is a deep, ancient perfume of dried resin, old dust, and the cold, metallic tang of the lead sheeting that covers the roof. Every step you take is a muted thud on the seasoned wood, a sound that is swallowed instantly by the sheer volume of the shadows. Below you, the palace sleeps in its layers of marble and silk, but up here, the building reveals its honest, muscular strength. You run your hand along a central support beam, a single oak tree that was already a century old when it was felled in the 1660s. The wood is as hard as iron, its surface etched with the rhythmic, diagonal marks of the adze. You can feel the incredible tension held within the timber, the way it bears the weight of the sky itself. There is a specific acoustic here, a low-frequency groan that the building makes as the night wind brushes across the roof. It is a slow, rhythmic stretching of the wood, a sound like a great ship at sea, reminding you that even the most permanent structures are living, breathing things. You move toward a small, circular dormer window, a bullseye of thick, hand-blown glass. The glass is not perfectly clear. It is filled with microscopic seeds and ripples, swirling patterns that distort the moonlight into a soft, silver abstraction. You lean your forehead against the cool pane and look out over the vast, dark sea of the palace rooftops. It is a landscape of gray slate and white stone, a jagged mountain range of chimneys and statues that stretches away into the mist. In the distance, the gilded lead figures on the roof's edge look like silent guardians, their frozen gestures caught in a perpetual dance against the stars. The world below has vanished. There is only the sky, the wind, and the ancient wood beneath your feet. You begin to descend a hidden staircase, a narrow spiral of stone that winds deep into the heart of the masonry. As you go lower, the air becomes heavier and warmer. You are entering the secret language of the walls, a place where the sounds of the palace are filtered through feet of solid limestone. You hear the rhythmic, subterranean thrum of the great clock, but it is no longer a tick, it is a pulse, a vibration that you feel in your chest. The stone walls around you are cool and damp, holding the moisture of the night. You notice the way your own breath becomes a rhythmic, visible mist in the dim light of a single, dying lantern. Finally, you reach the lowest level, the very floor of the great wells. These are the deep shafts of stone that reach down into the water table of the valley. You stand on the edge of a circular stone opening, looking down into the absolute blackness. The air that rises from the well is cold and smells of wet moss and the deep, mineral secrets of the earth. You listen. From far, far below, you hear a single drop of water detach itself from a stone and fall into the pool. Drip. The sound is perfect and clear, echoing up the stone shaft with a crystalline resonance. It is the sound of the earth's own heartbeat. You wait for the next drop, and in that waiting, your mind finds its final stillness. The rhythm of the well is the rhythm of eternity. You feel yourself merging with the limestone, your body becoming as heavy and as silent as the foundation of the palace itself. You are sinking now, past the wood, past the silk, past the gold, and into the dark, watery heart of the ground. The silence of the well becomes the silence of your mind. The darkness of the stone becomes the darkness of your sleep. You are at the very center of the stillness. You are the deep water. You are the ancient oak. You are the cold stone. Everything is still. Everything is quiet. Everything is at rest. The moon moves across the high, circular window, and the palace breathes one final, long sigh of indigo light. The dream is complete. The night is yours. You are safe. You are held. You are asleep. The transition from the deep, watery stillness of the wells leads you now toward the Gallery of Whispers, a long, curving corridor tucked behind the royal apartments where the architecture itself conspires to create a dreamlike suspension of sound. The walls here are lined with a smooth, polished plaster known as stucco lustro, a material so fine it feels like cool, dry skin. As you walk, you notice a strange acoustic phenomenon. The slight rustle of your sleeve or the soft intake of your breath travels along the curve of the ceiling, appearing to whisper back to you from the far end of the hallway. It is a gentle, rhythmic feedback, a conversation between you and the stone that encourages a slow, meditative pace. The scent in this hidden gallery is a delicate mixture of dried lavender sachet, old beeswax, and the faint, sweet aroma of almond oil used to maintain the wood. It is a clean darkness, a space that feels scrubbed of the day's anxieties. You find a high-backed chair of blue velvet, tucked into a niche where the moonlight hits the floor in a perfect, sharp-edged diamond. You sit, and the velvet yields with a slow, heavy sigh. The fabric is thick and dense, absorbing the warmth of your body and reflecting it back in a soft, steady glow. You rest your head against the tall back of the chair, and the world begins to dissolve into a series of rhythmic textures. From this vantage point, you can hear the midnight conservatory of the Queen, located just beyond the heavy oak doors at the end of the hall. This is a world of glass and greenery, where the exotic plants brought from the ends of the earth sleep under a roof of crystal. The sound here is a botanical silence. You listen to the way the large, tropical leaves of the palms brush against the glass as the temperature shifts, a slow, papery slide that sounds like the turning of a page in a massive, ancient book. The air in the conservatory is thick and humid, a tropical warmth that smells of damp earth, blooming jasmine, and the spicy, resinous scent of rare ferns. You imagine the roots of these plants reaching down into the rich, dark soil of their ceramic pots. The soil is moist and cool, a subterranean world of quiet growth. You focus on the physiology of the leaf, the way the stoma closes for the night, the way the sap slows its ascent, the way the entire plant relaxes its posture in the absence of the sun. This is a rhythmic, biological piece, a reminder that all life, even the most exotic and vibrant, requires the deep, dark restoration of the night. You feel your own sap slowing, your own internal systems shifting into a state of maintenance and repair. Beyond the glass of the conservatory, the Hameau de la Reine, the Queen's private hamlet, rests beside its still, dark pond. In the moonlight, the thatched-roof cottages look like something out of a fairy tale, frozen in a time that never was. You hear the rhythmic, liquid gluck of a fish breaking the surface of the pond, followed by the slow, expanding rings of ripples that eventually wash against the stone edge of the mill. The water here is not a machine for power, it is a mirror for the soul. It is deep, dark, and perfectly undisturbed. The palace has now reached its final, most unified frequency. The whispers in the gallery have faded. The palms in the conservatory have settled. The water in the hamlet has returned to its glass-like state. You are being held in a cradle of silk, stone, and leaf. The 100,000-word journey has brought you to a place where the air itself feels like a blessing. You are sinking deeper into the velvet of the chair, your limbs feeling like the heavy oak beams of the roof, solid, seasoned, and immovable. The shadows are your blanket. The silence is your song. The night is your sanctuary. You are drifting now, past the palace, past the gardens, past the forest, and into the absolute, wordless center of your own rest. Stay. Stay. In the center of the jasmine scent. In the center of the velvet blue. The king's dream is finished. Your dream has begun. Asleep. The stillness of the hamlet gives way to the silent libraries of the Petit Trianon, a space where the air is filtered through hundreds of years of leather, ink, and the quiet intentions of the mind. As you move through the small, intimate doorways, the scale of the world changes. The grand, echoing voids of the main palace are replaced by the human-centric comfort of a private retreat. The floor here is a warm cherry wood, laid in a chevron pattern that seems to lead the eye toward the hearth. Every step is a soft, melodic clack that suggests a home rather than a monument. You stand before the bookshelves, where the spines are decorated with gold-tooled lilies and delicate floral vines. We explore the acoustics of the page. In this room, the silence has a dry quality, a crispness that comes from the thousands of sheets of paper that act as a natural sound absorber. You reach out and touch the spine of a volume bound in red Morocco leather. The surface is textured with a fine, pebble-like grain, cool to the touch but holding a residual softness. It is a material that has survived the humidity of a century, growing more beautiful and more stable with every passing year. The scent in the library is the ultimate anchor for a wandering mind. It is a base note of cedarwood and beeswax, layered with a middle note of vanilla, the chemical result of old paper breaking down into the atmosphere. It is a nostalgic, grounding fragrance that signals to the brain that it is time to stop searching and begin resting. You find a small, upholstered stool near the window and sit. The fabric is a cream-colored linen, slightly coarse but cool and breathable. You look out the window, and as if on cue, the sky begins to change. The orchestra of the midnight rain begins its performance. It starts as a single, rhythmic tap on the glass, a solitary drop of water that has traveled from the high Atlantic clouds to find this specific pane of crystal. Then another follows. Soon, the rain is a steady, white noise percussion against the palace. This is not a storm, it is a vertical mist. A gentle falling of water that softens the lines of the Grand Canal and turns the forest into a charcoal blur. You listen to the different frequencies of the rain. The high note, the sharp, crystalline ping of water hitting the lead roof gutters. The mid-note, the soft, rhythmic hiss of rain falling into the thick leaves of the chestnut trees. The low note, the deep, resonant thud of water hitting the saturated earth and the stone basins of the fountains. Together, these sounds create a hollow silence, a wall of noise that seals you inside the Petit Trianon. The world outside the rain does not exist. There are no roads, no cities, no clocks. There is only this room, the scent of the books, and the rhythmic drumming of the water. You watch a single stream of rain as it travels down the glass, weaving a path through the old ripples of the pane. It moves with a hypnotic, gravity-led grace, pausing at the bottom before merging with the dark. The hearth in the library still holds a single, glowing log of applewood. It releases a faint, rhythmic pop as a pocket of sap reaches the heat, followed by a slow, orange glow that illuminates the bottom row of books. The light is steady and low, a visual heartbeat that encourages your eyes to close. You are being lulled by the chemistry of the wood, the physics of the rain, and the geography of the silk. You are no longer reading the story, you are the story. You are a character in the king's book, resting in the margins of a gilded page. The ink is dry. The covers are closing. The library is dark. Stay. Stay. In the sound of the rain. In the scent of the cedar. The night is heavy. The water is constant. Asleep. The rain continues its steady, rhythmic dance against the glass. But inside the gallery of porcelain flowers, the air is held in a state of eternal, motionless spring. This long, narrow corridor is a masterpiece of artifice, where the walls are lined with thousands of delicate blooms crafted from Vincennes porcelain. As you walk, the light from your single, flickering taper catches the edges of the ceramic petals, lilies, roses, and carnations that never wilt and never scent the air with anything but the clean, mineral smell of fired clay. You lean in to examine a single porcelain rose. We explore the geometry of the artificial. Every petal is as thin as a dragonfly's wing, translucent and fragile, yet hardened by the intense heat of the kiln into a permanent, crystalline form. You imagine the artisan's hand, the steady, rhythmic pressure of the brush as they applied the rose pompadour pigment, a color that seems to glow from within the stone. There is a profound peace in this lack of decay. In a palace where everything is subject to the slow erosion of time, these flowers represent a fixed moment, a rhythmic pulse that has been frozen in a state of perfect beauty. The silence here is punctuated only by the distant, muffled roar of the Neptune fountain, located at the far northern end of the gardens. You move toward the great windows that overlook the basin. In the moonlight, the 22 lead sculptures of the fountain, sea gods, tritons, and massive ocean mammals, look like dark, glistening titans rising from the black water. The rain has filled the basin to its brim, and the overflow slides over the stone lip in a single, continuous sheet of silver. You listen to the hydraulics of the deep night. This is the sound of the great overflow, a low-frequency, liquid rumble that vibrates through the earth and into the soles of your feet. It is a grounding sound, a reminder of the massive volume of the water and its unyielding, gravity-led strength. The rain on the surface of the basin creates a billion tiny, dancing points of light, a visual static that mimics the feeling of your own thoughts beginning to blur and merge. You find a seat on a wide windowsill of gray marble. The stone is cool, a stabilizing contrast to the humid warmth of the porcelain gallery. You look out at the Neptune basin, and you realize that the water is a mirror of the sky. The dark clouds are moving in slow, heavy continents across the moon, and as they pass, the light on the fountain shifts from silver to charcoal, and back to silver again. This is the rhythm of the celestial cloud, a slow and majestic movement that governs the light of the world. The palace is now a vessel of shadows and water. The porcelain flowers watch over the hallway with their silent, ceramic gaze. The sea gods in the basin hold their tridents toward the indigo sky. You are caught in the middle of this grand, silent arrangement. Your heart has found the frequency of the overflow, steady, heavy, and constant. Your breath has found the frequency of the rain, soft, rhythmic, and effortless. The 100,000-word journey is reaching its deepest, most subterranean level. You are sinking through the marble, through the lead pipes, through the dark roots of the garden, and into the absolute, wordless bedrock of the earth. The story is no longer a series of images, it is a single, sustained note of peace. Stay. Stay. In the center of the silver water. In the center of the porcelain rose. The world is a fountain. The fountain is a dream. Asleep. The porcelain garden fades behind you as you move toward the silent opera house, the Opera Royal. This is a cavern of wood and illusion, a place where the architecture is designed to vibrate with the human voice, but now stands in a state of profound, hollow rest. As you enter the royal box, the air is still and holds a dry, resonant quality. Unlike the stone corridors of the palace, the opera is built almost entirely of pine and oak, painted with such skill that it mimics the cold weight of marble. You run your hand along the railing of the box. The wood is smooth and holds a faint, organic warmth. We explore the acoustics of the empty vessel. In this space, the silence has a texture. It is a soft, wooden silence that seems to cushion your very thoughts. You listen to the rhythmic creak of the scenery. High above the stage, the heavy ropes and pulleys of the rigging settle into the night. A single wooden beam expands with a slow, musical groan, a sound that echoes through the vast, dark volume of the theater like a distant cello note. This is the house breathing, a slow and patient measurement of the passing hours. The scent here is a heavy blend of old stage paint, dry timber, and the lingering phantom of rose-scented powder. It is a nostalgic, theatrical perfume that suggests a world of dreams and masks. You look down into the pit of the orchestra, where the music stands remain in perfect, silent rows. You imagine the physics of the string. Somewhere in the dark, a harp or a harpsichord sits with its strings under immense tension. Even in the stillness, the metal and the gut are vibrating at a frequency too low for the ear to catch, a constant, rhythmic pull that anchors the room to the present. You lean back into the blue velvet upholstery of the king's chair. The fabric is thick and deep, absorbing the sound of your breathing. You look toward the ceiling, where the great chandelier hangs like a frozen galaxy. The crystals are dark now, catching only the faintest glint of the moonlight that filters through the high, leaded windows. We focus on the dynamics of the pendulum. The chandelier moves by a fraction of a millimeter in the draft, a movement so slow it takes minutes to complete. Watching it is like watching the slow, inevitable movement of the stars. It is a visual metronome for the sleeping mind. The narrative now moves toward the final indigo fog over the lake of the Swiss Guards, the Piece d'Eau des Suisses. This is the southern boundary of the dream, a vast, rectangular body of water that sits at the foot of the orangery. The fog here is different. It is a heavy water mist that rolls off the surface of the lake in thick, horizontal layers. You walk toward the stone edge of the water. The grass is long and wet, matting down under your feet with a soft, rhythmic squelch. You listen to the acoustics of the open void. Here, there are no walls to catch the sound. The noise of the rain has stopped, leaving only the static of the earth, the low, constant hum of the wind moving through the reeds and the distant, rhythmic lap of the water against the limestone embankment. The lake is a dark, liquid void, stretching away into the mist until the horizon disappears. You feel the atmospheric pressure of the night. The air is heavy and cool, pressing against your skin with a gentle, supportive weight. You are standing at the edge of the world. The palace is a distant, glowing mountain of stone behind you. The forest is a dark wall to your left. Before you, there is only the water and the fog. You are sinking into the landscape, your body becoming as still as the statues that line the terrace. The transition from the open, misty void of the lake brings you back toward the heart of the palace, standing at the foot of the grand staircase, the Escalier des Ambassadeurs. This is the final ascent of the dream, a vertical forest of multicolored marbles, greens from the Pyrenees, deep reds from Languedoc, and whites from Carrara. In the pre-dawn stillness, the staircase is a monument to the rhythm of the vertical. Every step is a massive, unyielding slab of stone, cool and smooth, holding the silence of the earth within its polished grain. You place your hand on the heavy gilded balustrade. The metal is cold and solid, its ornate scrolls and sunbursts providing a rhythmic texture under your palm. As you begin to climb, slowly and deliberately, you listen to the acoustics of the stone ascent. Every movement creates a soft, muffled echo that travels up the vast, open well of the staircase, bouncing off the painted ceilings and returning to you as a gentle, delayed sigh. This is the grand echo, a sound that stretches time, making each second feel as wide and as deep as the palace itself. The scent here is the mineral breath of the palace, the smell of cold lime, wet stone, and the faint, noble aroma of the incense that has permeated the walls over decades. It is a clean, uplifting fragrance that clears the mind of the final lingering thoughts. You reach the top of the stairs and look back down into the shadows. The staircase looks like a frozen waterfall of stone, cascading into the dark. We focus on the dynamics of the stillness. There is no one here but the shadows and the statues. The figures of victory and fame carved into the niches look down with sightless, marble eyes, their frozen gestures a testament to a world that has stopped moving. You move toward the state apartments, where the doors are heavy and made of solid oak, 3 inches thick. You listen to the rhythm of the lock. Somewhere deep within the palace, a night watchman turns a heavy iron key. The sound travels through the stone veins of the building, a distant, metallic clack-clack that signals the final sealing of the interior. The palace is now a locked vault of gold and shadow. You are safe within its ribs. You are protected by its mass. You find yourself in the salon of Apollo, where the throne once stood. The room is now empty of people, but full of presence. We spend a long time on the physics of the crimson velvet that lines the walls. In the dark, the red turns to a deep, liquid black. You can feel the fabric drinking in the silence, pulling the sound of your heartbeat into its deep, soft pile. You lean against the wall, and the velvet yields, a soft and heavy embrace that supports your entire weight. The narrative has now reached the point of absolute zero. The marble is cold. The gold is dark. The stone is silent. The dream is complete. The first hint of gray light is still an eternity away. You are floating in the indigo gap between the stars and the stone. Your mind is a mirror, reflecting nothing but the peace of Versailles. Your body is a statue, carved from the same mountain as the walls. There is no more story to tell. There is only the breath. Inhale the cold stone. Exhale the dark gold. The light of the moon has retreated from the marble floors, leaving the palace in a state of absolute, pre-dawn suspension. This is the final stillness. The end of the Sun King's dream is not a conclusion, but a transition into a permanent and profound quiet. You are standing in the very center of the Cour de Marbre. The black and white tiles beneath your feet are slick with a final, heavy layer of dew, reflecting the stars that are now beginning to fade into the deep indigo of the coming hour. You look up at the clock on the central pavilion. The gilded hands are frozen in the dark, their rhythmic ticking having merged with the sound of the wind in the trees. The palace is no longer a building, it is a single, massive intake of breath, held in the cold, clear air of the valley. We focus on the finality of the silence. It is a silence that has weight, a silence that has history, a silence that has been earned by the millions of stones and the thousands of years of human vision. You feel this weight settling over your shoulders like a heavy mantle of ermine and silk. It is not a burden, but a comfort, a final assurance that the world is stable, the walls are thick, and your rest is protected. The scent of the night has reached its final, most refined note, the smell of cold earth and absolute peace. There is no more lavender, no more smoke, no more leather. There is only the clean, sharp smell of the universe. You are breathing in the stars. You are breathing out the history of France. Your heartbeat has slowed to the pace of the dripping fountains, a steady, effortless rhythm that requires no thought and no exertion. You turn your gaze toward the horizon, where the forest meets the sky. There is no light there yet, only a deepening of the blue. You realize that you no longer need the sun. You have become your own source of light, a soft, internal glow that reflects off the mirrors of your mind. The grand gates are locked. The iron valves are closed. The mirrors are dark. The king is still. You are sinking into the foundation. You are merging with the bedrock. You are the stone. You are the shadow. You are the dream. The words have fallen away, leaving only the vibration of the silence. Everything is finished. Everything is quiet. Everything is beautiful. Stay. Stay. In the absolute center of the night. In the absolute center of yourself. The rest is final. The peace is eternal. Asleep.